In the aftermath of Catiline's rebellion, Cicero was left in control of a number of conspirators who had tried to side with Catiline and assist the effort to overthrow the government of Cicero. And in the wake of this problem, Cicero went to the Senate and asked for the Senate to empower him with the ability to execute these conspirators, even though it violated constitutional tradition, which is fundamentally important in any constitutional system, but especially one where it's an unwritten constitution. And the Roman Republican historian Sallust preserves for us an extraordinary passage in his Histories of the Late Republic, his history of the war with Catiline, of the senatorial debates. And while these may be stylized, they preserve for us what the kinds of debates could have been held in the aftermath of this crisis. And in fact, there are two great speeches that are opposed to one another in this history that took place in the Senate in the aftermath of the rebellion. One is placed in the mouth of the great Roman senator of the age, Cato the Younger. Cato argues the way that Cicero wanted him to argue, that Cicero should be empowered to execute the conspirators. He argued that the highest principle of state was self-preservation, and that the duty to preserve the state superseded other constitutional principles. In other words, he argued for security as a justification for the ultimate decree of the Senate that would allow Cicero to execute the conspirators. Against Cato argued another senator, a rising politician named Julius Caesar. Caesar argued that the conspirators had certainly been traitors, and that nothing too evil could befall a traitor. In other words, Caesar says that these conspirators deserve to die. Caesar says every action in a society that lives by the rule of law sets a precedent. And if we execute these citizens, it violates a tradition in the Roman constitutional system, that we do not execute our citizens. And once we cross that line, then it's crossed. Caesar says, today we are fortunate because we have a consul who is a Cicero. And we know that Cicero is a good man. But he says, what about tomorrow when we have a consul who's not a Cicero? What will we do when that consul comes to us and gives a fine speech, just as Cato has given, and says that our families are in danger, our wives and our children. And he says that security is the highest principle of the state and that it supersedes other constitutional foundations. What will we do then when it's not a Cicero? This debate raises profound questions, timeless questions about the tensions between the rule of law and the preservation of the state, the tensions between liberty and security that echo in our own day. And read carefully the speeches of Cato and Julius Caesar. Who's right in this debate? Should the conspirators have been executed or not? And as you read carefully, think about the kinds of principles that are appealed to, especially in Julius Caesar's speech. What are the foundations of his arguments? What is the logic of his claim that it's dangerous to execute these conspirators?